everyone, this is Izzy at Minerva. We are going to be looking at how to draft a trumpet sleeve today. This sleeve has a lot of volume as it increases down the length of the sleeve arm. You are going to need your standard pattern drafting tools to follow along with me today, and they're listed next to me right here for you. You will have your very own personal sleeve block that you've drafted and created, and yours is going to look slightly different to mine. However, the basic principles of what I'm showing you today will apply to you too. Okay, let's get going. The first thing you need to do is to trace over your sleeve block so that we can start cutting into that block and adding the volume as required. So trace over it and then bring it to the table. On the screen in front of you, you can see my block, which is printed off on the computer just so that you can see it clearly on the screen above. Draw a line from the bottom of the sleeve head at the back across to the bottom of the sleeve head at the front. Measure the distance of that line and divide it by 6. Then mark 5 points along that line that are equidistant from each other. So for me, my distance is 34 centimetres. When I divide that by 6 in order to get 6 segments, each of my lines needs to be 5.6 centimetres apart. Square those lines down. Next, we're going to use our pair of scissors to cut up the lines, opening up each line from the base, but leaving a pivot point up at the sleeve head. What we're going to do now that we've cut up those lines is we're then going to open up those lines so they're pivoting up at the sleeve head, leaving a nice extra bit of volume underneath at the sleeve base. So you can increase the width between each segment by between 5 or even 10 centimetres in order to get that more dramatic effect that we're looking for the trumpet sleeve. I'm going to be increasing my volume just by 5 centimetres between each segment. I've sellotaped down the middle one here, and I'm going to start off by opening up the volume at the back of the sleeve. Taking my pattern drafting ruler down at the bottom here, I'm going to move my segment out and pivot it out until the gap between both of the segments is exactly 5 centimetres down here at this point. Sellotape that in place. Let's repeat that process now for the final back pattern piece down here, and then just continue for the other pattern pieces, extending the sleeve volume out by 5 centimetres each time. And that is all there is to it. Grab your tracing paper and let's trace over this new sleeve pattern piece. Add your seam allowances to your side seams. Dot out your 1.5 centimetre seam allowance around your sleeve head and then draw in a nice smooth curve. I'm just going to add a simple 2 centimetre seam allowance to the base of the sleeve so I can turn it up and up again. Find a nice soft curve to continue around the base of the sleeve and join up all those points. In order to work out where the grain line sits, we need to follow and find the middle of the pattern piece, which will be, bearing in mind we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 openings, it will be the middle opening, which is here, and the grain line should be perpendicular to the sleeve base at a point that is halfway between this wedge that we've opened up. So, the first thing to do is to mark a point in this middle wedge that is halfway between the 2 points. And then just draw your grain line along that line. Add your notches. Brilliant. Let's go and cut that pattern piece out now. You're going to need to attach your sleeve to a bodice that you have drafted and sewn in order to check how that looks and the aesthetics of that sleeve. So you can choose whichever bodice block you want to adapt. Don't forget that when you're drafting out your pattern piece for your bodice, you need to add your 1.5 centimetre seam allowance to your bodice as well. So go away, draft out your bodice and then come back and let's attach this sleeve onto it and see what it looks like. Okay, so we've cut out our pattern piece now. This is the right side of our fabric facing up on the screen. First thing we're going to do is to fold the sleeve with the right sides together and just pin all the way along the side seam of the arm. Next, sew that seam in place using your standard seam allowance. Next, grab your tailor's ham and just press that seam open. Turn the sleeve the right way out. So we know that this is the front of the sleeve because it's got one single notch at that point. Next, grab your bodice pattern piece and with the right side facing up, lay it next to the sleeve. Position the sleeve to match up with the bodice. So this is the front of the sleeve and this is the front of the bodice. So we've got our two single notches at that point. We're just going to find the side seams of both pattern pieces and pin those together. Now at this point you may want to refer to video 70 where I talk you through in a lot more detail how to attach a sleeve head into a arm side of a bodice. But we'll just talk you through those steps nice and quickly now. So we're going to flip the garment now, right sides together, and line up those little notches and pin in place between the two notches. You can then sew that in place if you want to, or you can just move on straight onto pinning all the way around your sleeve head. Now that you've refined the fit and kind of got that all sorted, the pinning process should be pretty straightforward with your sleeve head. Okay, brilliant. Once you've pinned that in place, and I do appreciate there's a lot of pins here, I'd recommend just basting in place using a long stitch length first, and then going over that again with your standard stitch length. All that does is it just helps everything to sit in place really nicely. So let's baste it first. Once you've basted it in place, just check that everything's all looking good on the right side. There's no significant puckers or gathers anywhere. It's easy for that to happen, isn't it? Great, and once you're happy with that, then just go all the way around the sleeve head one more time with your standard stitch length. Okay, lovely. Our sleeve is now sewn into the garment, which is brilliant. We just need to sort out what we're going to do down here at the hem. So I allowed a 2 centimetre seam allowance, which means that I can turn under the hem of the sleeve by 1 centimetre and then turn it under again by another centimetre to create a nice smooth finish. So I'm going to turn the sleeve inside out. And we're going to go around the hem of the sleeve and mark a point that is 2 centimetres offset from the raw edge all the way around. This is a very, very simple hemming technique. You could obviously overlock and just turn it up once as well. And I'm using a washable marker pen to do this. Once you've gone around marking the 2 centimetre offset, then go around another time and mark a 3 centimetre offset from the raw edge. Next, we're going to go to the ironing board and we're going to turn up the raw edge to meet the 2 centimetre line, which is effectively turning it under by 1 centimetre. And then we're just going to turn it up one more time so it hits the 3 centimetre offset mark. And effectively what that's done is it's given us our 2 centimetre hem. Go away and press that. Brilliant. Once you've pinned that in place, we're then just going to sew that, making sure that we capture the folded edge of the hem in place. I'm going to sew it with the right side of the fabric facing up on the sewing machine so that I get a nice neat finish. Sometimes the real stitches are more consistent compared to the bobbin stitches, and this is why we sew with the right side facing up when we're doing a visible top stitch. Brilliant! And once you've sewn one sleeve, you can just go and sew the other sleeve in exactly the same manner. All right then, should we go see what it looks like? So here we have it, our beautiful trumpet sleeve, looking amazing and incredibly dramatic. You can imagine if it was shorter or longer, how much of a difference that would make to the aesthetics as well. And if you added extra volume, maybe 10 centimetre increase of volume in between each segment of the sleeve, how much more of an impact that would make too. Thank you for joining me today. It's been great fun to look at that little technique of how to create a trumpet sleeve. I hope you've really enjoyed that. And as ever, if you've got any comments, please feel free to comment below the video. We always love to hear from our maker community here at Minerva. Don't forget that you can create a free Minerva account on our website where you can connect in with our maker community, sharing all the beautiful things that you're making. Our maker community loves to see what others are making, and it's a really great way to engage with the community. If you've been following along with this pattern drafting series, please do tag us and show us what you're creating. We absolutely love to see your creative journey. So thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next week.